Okay, so on to so we're now past logical tiering. So with this release that we're just coming out with now, a firmware update to the Drobo B1200Is that are already in the field is our first support of solid state drives. So Rod explained how we essentially carve up a small amount of storage on the hard disk drives to do logical tiering. Imagine moving that carved out space instead of doing it as a sliver across all your hard disk drives, move that into SSDs. So from a customer's perspective, we talked about how all the user has to do with the Drobo is just insert drives in the Drobo, no carriers, no screws, just pop a raw drive in a Drobo like a tape into a cassette deck. They do the same for SSDs. So you can, if you already have a Drobo running and you have some empty drive bays and you have SSDs, you can pop an SSD right in the Drobo. It'll accept that SSD and put it into the single pool of storage. If you, let's say you're in single disk redundancy mode, you put in the second SSD, now you have reached essentially critical mass, because now I have two drives, I can protect from a single drive failure, and Drobo will automatically create another tier of storage inside that one common pool. So imagine this being this array over here being a Drobo B1200i. The red drives are SSDs, the black drives are hard disk drives. And let's say this is in dual disk redundancy mode, when I introduce 3, a separate tier will be created here. It's the same pool of storage. The user doesn't have to do anything, but Drobo will treat this as a second tier, just like it treats the logical tier, and be able to accelerate transactional I/O.
Just to be clear, you're not saying that you're sending all the writes to the flash devices that are bad at writes, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, that's a from us as a storage vendor. As we sell the product with the drives, we can choose what drive matches up well with that. Obviously, the user. So another thing about a Drobo, since it's so easy to just put any drive in a Drobo, a lot of Drobos actually are sold with the slots being empty, and the user actually has some choice of what type of drive they want to use. And so Howard, I think that a lot of it has, if I'm understanding your question or your comment probably is, they could choose what type of drive they
No, I'm not talking about what kind of flash SSD.
Okay.
Flash is much better at reading than at writing. And if you're doing the logical tiering where you're going, well, this is the fast tier, we're going to put all our writes here to accelerate the writes.
But it's much better at writing than spinning disk.
Yeah. So this is core to the core to the problem we're trying to solve specifically for small and medium business IT professionals. So if they bought this Drobo and they're using, let's say, all 72K, 72,000 RPM drives, SAS or SATA. In reality,
if I could get 72,000 RPM drives, I would be really happy.
1,000, yes.
They would, however, have bad sounding boom issues.
7,200.
So let's say in reality you're getting between at best 80 or 100 IOPS per drive on that type of a drive, and you knock a few out for parity. If you're using a traditional RAID array, you got to knock one out for parity for every RAID group, as well as one for your hot spare. You're down to in a 12 drive shelf, you're down to not that many IOPS, and so. Our primary goal of this technology, Mara's going to go into this as we go through the live demo, is what the end user really wants. They don't want to become deep experts at storage like all of you guys are. They just want to deploy storage and have their problem solved. A lot of them want capacity and performance. They don't want to have to make the decision of, well, do I buy nearline SATA or SAS drives and have high capacity? 2-3 terabyte drives available now, or do I say, well, I need to deploy 450 or 600 gigabyte 15,000 RPM drives, and then my price just went up, my capacity went down, now I may not meet those goals. It's a tough thing for them to decide. So with this technology, one of our primary goals is get past that performance ceiling that they were at before, the 72 RPM drives, allow them to keep the capacity that they really desired from that type of a setup. And so,
Robin has a question.
Oh, question.
Yeah, just a quick question, and maybe you already answered it. Mechanically, most SSDs are 2.5-inch drives.
Right.
So, and you said these are 3.5-inch
Yep.
slots, drive bays. So how does that work?
So there are some 3.5-inch SSDs out there. So if you're going to buy the Drobo if you're going to buy a Drobo and you're going to buy our solution that includes hard disk drives and SSDs, it will come with 3.5-inch SSDs. The majority of SSDs out in the market are 2.5-inch. We have worked closely with a company, a product called IcyDock, to adapt the drive. They make a metal enclosure that actually works really well. They make some more entry-level enclosures. We've been testing their metallized enclosure.
It's not better than usual ones.
Yeah, it's very good. They actually this array also accepts, to give a little plug for them, it also accepts SAS drives. They just came out with their SAS pass-through adapter, so now I can adapt a native SAS, an enterprise SAS SSD 2.5-inch into the array, and so we've tested with that, and that's been working really well.
X25Es, that's going to be interesting. SLC in your Drobo.
It should work in there just fine. So we have tested for broad compatibility. We will be going out initially. Drobo's never had a compatibility list before. We are going to let the users know exactly what we've tested, and then if you buy the complete solution from Drobo, it will come with 3.5-inch SSDs in there.
And we're going to pass examples of that around during the live demo.
Woohoo!
Kinesthetic learning, people.
So,
you will feel it.
So because we have the goal of getting them past a performance ceiling, which they had to accept before, but also allow them to have their capacity they've always desired, so performance plus capacity, we've implemented the technology to utilize as small a number of SSDs as possible. And so Rod's going to go into some of the details there. He's already explained kind of triple mirrors and how we get redundancy on a storage pool basis. But the other advantage to keeping the SSD count down is creating a product, a solution that's priced at a level that's acceptable to them. So if we'd go back a year ago or even a year and a half ago, we really wouldn't be able to put together a solution like this because the cost to the end user, the cost to the IT admin or IT director would be too high for them to accept it into their server closet. So we really feel like the time is right. I mean, the SSD vendors have come through the drives and we're putting the solution together. Yes?
Sorry, I'm a bit slow. Can you just run me through the SSDs again and how you use them, because it hasn't registered with me.
You're not slow. So we're going to get to that now. So Rod's going to now continue on perfect timing. Rod's going to continue on essentially how we introduce
Nigel's
this.
Our straight man.
All right. How we introduce this second tier and utilize that differently from the bulk tier.
So finally, I get to talk about the cool stuff. This is where the magic happens. So Erik said that if you just plug in a couple of SSDs, if you're in single redundant mode, or 3 SSDs if you're in dual redundant mode, that is the on switch for turning on physical tiering. There's nothing in the Drobo dashboard. You just plug them in and it does everything. So the first thing that will happen is, as Erik said, it will recognize the SSDs as being a faster tier of storage. It will carve it out internally and automatically into a separate pool. And if you put in 3 and if you're in dual redundant mode, it will basically only create, well, it will only create triple mirrored zones in there for you. Then it will, as new writes come into the system that are identified as transactional writes, they will go into physical tier, just like they would have gone into the logical tier. But now there's a real advantage from reading from these disks, where there was no advantage to reading from a logical tier before. There is a huge advantage in reading from these SSDs. So the next thing we do is we find the logical tier that you had, and we suck that straight into the SSD. So we take the, whatever it is, 20 gigabytes or whatever it is, we suck that in. So that initializes a small amount of the SSDs you plugged in. Then while we were running in logical tiering mode, we were monitoring what was going on with the array. And data that came into the logical tier and then rolled off into the bulk tier. We still know the ratio of transactional to bulk IOs that happened there. So we know whether that's likely to be hot data. So we suck that into. So we start migrating zones aggressively into this tier to give you the maximum acceleration you can get and as quickly as you can get.
So if I've got a B1200i behind my VMware system, some of the traffic it's generating is going to be transactional, and some of it's going to be sequential. You write those to different data zones?
Yes. We identify on the fly the bulk
Yeah, by the
traffic
size
will
of
go
the I/O, yeah.
to the magnetic disks, and the transactional I/O will go to the SSDs. And we do that dynamically as the I/O comes in. And then this data then is in its final resting place. This is a fully redundant piece of storage. We don't then have to go move it again. So it's
Until it's full.
until it's full, yeah. And then when it's full, we've been monitoring what's been happening in here. We know which parts of it are hot, which parts of it are not
So
hot.
you keep access frequency metadata?
Yeah. And then we will find the parts that are not benefiting from being there anymore, and we'll move those off into bulk storage into a nice big fat stripe, get our storage efficiency back. And if there's anything in the bulk tier that is hot and would benefit from being in the physical tier, the transactional tier, we'll pull that in at the same time essentially.
Okay.
So we basically keep your hottest data in the fastest disks.
Okay, so it's sublun tiering, 1 gigabyte granularity, continuous data motion.
Yes. So except for writes, writes will go directly in there.
Writes are assumed to be hot.
Right. Because
To have their coolness discovered later.
transactional writes, yeah.
Yeah.
And because we're completely virtualized, we can put the data wherever we want. We don't have to.
And streaming writes don't need to go to SSDs
Right.
because spinning disks are good at streaming.
So you now get another benefit from this as well, because we've got you basically pulled your transactional data into this transactional tier. There's very little, it turns out, transactional data that's going to get left in the bulk tier. So you now have a nice spindle separation. So we're not doing random accesses to your magnetic disks anymore. Or almost all your random accesses are in these disks. And these guys have no seek penalty. It doesn't matter where you read from these guys, it's the same latency, which is very low. It's a couple hundred microseconds versus 10, 12 milliseconds for a big random seek in the bulk magnetic tier.
Are SSDs always a trip mirror or a dual mirror? Is that you wouldn't put a parity stripe across 4 or 5 SSDs or something?
We will not put a parity stripe on them, no. But if you put enough in, it would create mirror stripes.
So if I put in 6 and say I wanted to survive 2 drive failures.
So they work out probably, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it would complicate things, but I might want actually to say I'm willing to take 1 SSD failure, 2 drive failures.
Well, we always keep the same level of redundancy.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just thinking I might, given the costs involved, want the option to go slightly less, but considering the fact today's SSDs aren't actually all that reliable, I'm not sure.
So today we have one policy to do that. I think, Howard, I agree with you. I think it's also too early to tell as well of what's going to happen. We have a lot of data on failures and behavior of hard disk drives. We don't have very much data on that for SSDs as much, especially since it's
got to be SSD model by SSD model, and none of them have been in the field for long enough.
Right, and so we're keeping that that's the same policy today. And the other is also on SSDs with wear leveling. And we're going to be reporting to the user wear of the drives, but it is organic in nature, and who knows when at one point in time those will eventually turn themselves off, and the user will have to replace them. And we will be we talk about bundling and drives from Drobo in the channel. We will be using kind of drives that are set up more more of an enterprise type setup. So they will be heavily over provisioned drives. You want to have a drive that lasts years and years and years. Inside of a Drobo. You're right. They are the expensive component of the system.
Yeah. So the SSDs you guys are shipping, do they have a capacitor to dump the RAM cache?
So Rod can go into that even some more. So we have a lot of that built into the Drobo. So we don't actually need that in the SSD itself for how our cache works. Rod, you want to go into
Sure. If you guys take a look at the B1200 later on, you'll find that it's got a couple of batteries in there. So there's a big battery on the controller card itself, and then
that's for the NVRAM in the controller.
We back the user data too. So all the user data flowing through the system is battery backed by those batteries until it's committed to disk, and the disk caches are flushed. And we don't untag it and release the memory back until the disk cache flushes. So
okay.
if you
and those SSDs will tell you that they've written it actually to flash, not to their internal RAM.
Yeah, I asked them that very question, and they all said yes.
Okay.
why not give the option for the 1200i of like a diskless option? I noticed that you can't buy it without disks. Like as an enterprise, as old servers and gear coming out, they probably have lots of disks and would position it as a backup target, at least with their old drives.
That's a good point. So today all of our Drobos are available for purchase empty except the B1200i. We introduced the B1200i, which is aimed strictly at IT environments. One thing we wanted to do is have some control over the experience with the product. One thing we've noticed with Drobos is exactly what you're explaining. Drobos will go into a customer environment and you'll see any kind of drives in the Drobo. We'll find failures and we'll find white label drives purchased off eBay. We'll find drives that are not intended for that type of environment. Like for example, you'll see a VMware cluster with a Drobo and low power green drives installed that are consumer desktop grade, and then the manufacturer of the drive won't support them, and it gets a little messy. We just wanted to, especially initially out the gate with that product, we wanted to have a little bit of control over what the type of experience that end user has. It ended up working out okay initially because of what's happened in the drive industry the last 7 months. That ended up working out okay because those types of drives you would put in a system like that, they were very hard to get anyway. We had good drive supply. We didn't raise our pricing. We kept that steady through the whole drive shortage. So it ended up working out okay. What we do moving forward, I don't know. We may open up some more flexibility there. Today you can buy it half populated, and you can expand with whatever type of drive you'd like. So we're through because Rob went into kind of the auto tuning and how that works. So these zones can move in and out of the transactional tier and the bulk tier to continuously optimize itself. So just to kind of wrap up on our tiering technology, literally all the user has to do, and Maro's going to demo this next, is they just insert the drives. There's not a single switch or knob. They'll insert the drives. Once they get to critical mass, in the case of single disk redundancy, it's 2 drives or more. Dual disk redundancy, it's 3 drives or more. In the Drobo dashboard utility, you'll see a little icon that looks like this, and it'll say your transactional tier is now active, and that's it. The user doesn't have to make any other decisions. So they'll see the performance reported number if it's a heavy load system. They'll see the performance load number from an IOPS perspective. You'll start to climb up fairly quickly. So it's our goal with everything that we do and every technology we implement to make it as fully automated as possible. So IT professionals that have to wear every hat in the building. There's the phone system, the Exchange server, the badge readers. They got to do everything.
There's one of them right there.
There you go. You should be.
I graduated.
And most IT professionals become an expert at kind of something, but often it's not everything. And they just want to be able to leverage modern storage technology adopted into their environment without having to take a course or pay for professional services or things like that. So that's why we're super excited about it. It's just another thing we've been able to apply the Drobo model to.
Quick question. When will you be supporting the resilient file system in Windows 8?
That's a good question. So Windows 8 is the preview's coming out June something-ish, first week of June. Well, it's out in preview form. The public preview comes out 1st of June. We haven't announced our specific strategy for supporting Windows 8, but we will, just like we've been in the past, we will be on it fairly quickly. So, and one of our goals also, since we're a fully virtualized file system, there's some things that we in the past have not been able to fully support. Our goal is obviously to fully support as much on the platform as possibly can. That adds value to the user. If masking our virtualization by essentially disabling it doesn't help the user, then we're going to guide the user to do the right thing.
When are you going to push the firmware update for SSD down to units like the FS?
It's a good question. So yes,
we'll answer later.
Yeah, we're going to have a segment after tomorrow's demo to talk more about
that. Yeah, because there's a lot of free CPU cycles in an FS.
Any last questions for the Chalk Talk section of today's program?
So it's really only 2 tiers, right?
There is 2 tiers, yeah.
Correct.
And so when you go to the SSD, you effectively have moved this write tier onto the SSD.
Yeah.
For sure. It's no longer on the disk anymore.
Right, and because the SSDs will be typically bigger, it will stay there. Because there's a big advantage of reading from there. We don't roll things aggressively out of there.
Right. Okay.
So if I do SAS SATA mixed, I don't get any real performance advantage until I get all SAS, right?
So SATA's mixed SSDs and hard disks?
No.
You're talking about 7,200 RPM versus 15,000, 15K.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, correct.
There really isn't a big enough differential to make it worthwhile.
And one of our goals with this technology, especially for this audience, is
to keep it from having to buy 15K RPM drives.
And I mean it's very clear where it's very clear where the industry is moving. You can lower. No, okay. You know, it's if we want to provide them capacity and the best performance we can give them, you know, 15K RPMs, especially in a large form factor. I just predict you're not going to see them around for very much longer.
I'm with you. The 15K RPM drive is a legacy device.
But on the other hand, the high capacity drives aren't going anywhere, and we're starting to see some pretty high capacity drives come out, and the roadmaps from the drive vendors look really good. So you'll be able to, in a fairly small array, 3U, 12 drive array, you'll get be able to have your cake and eat it too. So.